Welcome, episode number 27, as I said, tonight, October 17th, 2022 of the Lord, our Savior. It's been, Barrick and I were chatting before, it has been quite a week of just all kinds of craziness with playoff baseball, life in general, but baseball, I mean, man, we had some upsets. I guess I think it's fair to call them upsets. I don't think most people thought they were going to go that way, and we certainly didn't as a podcast. Barrick kind of went rogue on us last week, but yeah, man, it was real disappointing. So
I know everybody was bummed. It was hard to watch, but at the same time, I still think like for the general public, I think it was entertaining baseball, and that's that's important for the game as a whole. So, what do you?
Yeah.
I mean, what if you had to sum it up? Braves, what was their downfall?
Honestly, it was everything. I mean, the pitching, Max Fried having a short outing.
Fried was surprised. He kind of seemed like his outing was the one where it was like, what's going on here?
Kyle Wright came through big with a starting game 2, and that was obviously the game that the Braves end up winning. And then, unfortunately, Strider, we all kind of knew was a wild card, just depending on health. Looked really good through 2 innings, and just kind of, I think, went one too many. And then Morton, I mean, at this point, it's like you could call it dumb luck. I mean, having what happened last year in the World Series, getting hit with a comebacker, breaking his ankle, shortening that outing, and then having essentially the same thing this year, a comebacker come off his elbow, and he's unable to really go deep, past the second inning. So pitching, I would say pitching is probably the glaring issue. I mean, the Phillies offense,
which is crazy because that's not what anybody would have thought before it started.
No. But at the same time, the other problem was the offense just wasn't clicking either. So it's going to be hard to win baseball games when both, your offense isn't able to overcome what your pitching staff's giving up, and vice versa. Your pitching staff isn't able to overcome your offense not producing. So, I mean, really, I think when you look at it, if you kind of looked at the theme of the series, the Phillies were able to string together hits and then kind of hit them with a dagger. 2-run home run, 3-run home run. The Braves hit a lot of solo home runs. They didn't really string a lot of hitters, hits together, have a lot of people on base. And, I think ultimately that's kind of what did it in. So,
I mean, you got to give credit to the Phils. Rhys Hoskins, especially,
sure.
he's been absolutely raking. It seems like
JT
as well. He's been So that's the thing. Like, I think you got to give credit to the Phillies where it's due, but at the same time, it wasn't even really the big name guys for the Phils that were taking it on. So that, in a way, that kind of is even more disappointing because it just feels like the Braves had the opportunity to take advantage of that, just couldn't quite get it done. I think they've got to be looking back on that as like a missed opportunity.
For sure. I think look, it's always tough when your team loses in the playoffs or when a team loses in the playoffs, I'm sure, but this being a divisional opponent, it's a deep rivalry that goes back years, and to come out and have a showing the way they did. I mean, but we did talk about it before the series. We all said this was going to be a tough challenge for the Braves because they had played the Phillies so many times. I think if I remember correctly and looking back on it, the Braves won the season series like 11-8 or something like that. So it was a very evenly matched series.
Close. Yeah.
So, again, it was a toss-up, and the Phillies are just riding that same story, different year kind of thing of playoff momentum. I mean, there were times where it was like it did not matter if Nolan Ryan resurrected himself in his prime on the mound, the Phillies were going to get a hit. I mean, it just,
Yeah,
uh, which is, it's interesting because it was very eerily similar to how the Braves made a lot of their run last year.
that's
There were
true. Yeah.
there were times watching the Braves in that Dodgers series last year where it was like they can't get us out. I don't care who's on that mound right now; they can't get us
Hmm.
out. Um, so it kind of is what it is. I I've been debating how to have this conversation because look, like you said, this. So I'll just preface the conversation by this. This in by no means is taking away from what the Phillies did. The pitching staff dominated, the hitters crushed. It did all of that, but I do think you have to circle and look a little bit at the scheduling of this series. Game one, Tuesday afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's middle of the week, middle of the day. Like there's just not a lot of fire, not a lot of juice behind that. I don't care if it's a regular season game or a playoff game. Um, the fans are different. The atmosphere is different. There's just something different about playing under the lights. And then that's how the whole series was scheduled. The Braves were scheduled for afternoon day games every single game of this series. And when you look at it, as weird as it is, game two, the only one that they won, was pushed back because of rain and started at 7:30, and that's the game that they won. So
So let me ask you this: so if you're Major League Baseball, would you suggest that there was more of like a alternating schedule as far as like you play a day game and then one of the other series has a day game the next day, or is it? I mean, because the way I'm looking at it, unless you do that, somebody's got to play the day series,
yeah,
unless you're talking about lengthening, I guess the series and playing only
yeah.
like 2 games a day or something.
Well, I just feel like it was easy to do because the two teams that you're really going to have to give the day games to are your East Coast teams, right? So it was the
Yeah,
Braves or the
yeah,
Yankees. And so day one, they chose to put the Yankees in the primetime spot at 7 o'clock, which it is what it is. But then the American League was not playing the next day. So I don't understand why the Braves had to start at 4 o'clock when the other series was in LA. Why can you not have the Braves start at 7 and the Dodgers start at 9, just like you would during the normal regular season? Why did the games have to be at 4:30 and 7:30? I
yeah.
just don't. I just don't
I
understand
don't
that.
think there's probably a good reason for that. Although I will say that their logic behind it was probably, even though yes, the one of those teams or one of those series is a West Coast series, they're probably still trying to appease the East Coast, prime time
Yeah,
slot because they look at it like that's where the majority of viewers are going to
sure.
come from.
And again, I get it. I can
Yeah,
only imagine the scheduling that has to go into this and the
yeah,
TV partners and what their schedule is. I
yeah.
certainly get it. The other thing that we kind of chatted about too, and again, this is what makes this so difficult to not sound like it's complaining. Like again, obviously I would have liked for the Braves to win, but they didn't. And so I think in times like this is when these conversations are had. Right? It's no different than in the NFL
Yeah,
last year when the Chiefs and the Bills played, and there was so much outcry about the overtime rules. Sometimes things happen that make you need to question how things are being done. And
yep,
so again, this is where I would also just question the the format of the series of, is it actually home field advantage the way that the series are currently set? And the way that this series unfolded, I would say the home field advantage was in the Phillies' hands the whole time because of how the series was scheduled. So again, the reason I make that comment, the first two games of this series, the series started on Tuesday, and so games 1 and 2 were going to be Tuesday and Wednesday. Both
mhm,
were scheduled to be day games. Again, you're just not going to have the same home environment for those day type games. Fast forward, games 3 and 4, which are going to be in Philadelphia, are on Friday and on Saturday. It's okay if those are necessarily day games because they're easier games on the days of
yeah.
the
For
week
people to get
to
to,
get to.
yeah,
So it was going to be crazy in Philadelphia, hands down, both of those
yeah.
games. And I feel like that home field advantage was lost for the Braves with the way that it was scheduled. So I had kind of put this
Yeah.
out in the group chat of, would it make more sense in a 5-game series, the way that it's set up to be, for those first 2 games to have been in Philadelphia on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the series would have just finished in Atlanta with games 3, 4, and 5 on Friday, Saturday, Sunday? That to me feels much more
Or
like a home field advantage.
yeah, or if they had started the series on a Friday or Saturday.
Which again is not in their control. So I get that,
Yeah, yeah,
but I just don't feel like when a series starts on a Tuesday that you're giving much of a home field advantage for that day game. Uh, and again, I'm
yeah,
trying really hard not to make this sound like a complaint and a sore loser. The Braves, I mean, the Braves fans showed out, and it was a good environment. But again, I think you could see a much different environment from Game 1 that started at 2:00 to Game 2 that was delayed and started at 7:30. There was a big difference in how that game's atmosphere was.
yeah.
The other thing I just find weird, and I guess this is just, I guess the thought process here is, in a 5-game series, the way that it played out, if that lower seed wins 1 game at home, away, they can now close out that series at home. And so that's just, I feel like, a harsh punishment to that higher seed of losing just 1 game. Like, they didn't lose 2 in a row. You know what I'm saying? So again, I, this
Yeah,
conversation is really difficult to have because I'm not trying to complain. Like, the Phillies outplayed the Braves in every single facet. I just think there should be some conversation around true home field advantage based on scheduling, and I just feel like that did not. And so I'll just put my hand up on this too. This wasn't just a Braves thing, in my opinion. I think this hurt the
yeah,
Dodgers as
yeah.
well, because San Diego was wild Friday and Saturday,
Mhm.
like unbelievable. And so people can sit here and say that
The
it's
only
the
thing I would
players on
say
the,
though would
yeah,
be like with just like if I was playing devil's advocate in those two scenarios, the I agree with you. I think it's hard not to say that a nighttime game and or a weekend time slot is going to be to your advantage for your fans. I think most people would agree with that. But I will, if you was playing devil's advocate, I'd also say the Phillies and Padres, were kind of the hungrier fan base, if you will, because the Dodgers and
sure,
Braves have both had success, very recently.
sure,
So again, if I was going to play devil's advocate, I'd just say they were showed up because they're like, hey, we haven't seen this in a long time.
hundred
But
percent,
yeah, I agree. I think there are a lot of factors that go into scheduling these, but and maybe they will play around with the schedule. I mean, baseball's not been closed minded when it comes to changing up the playoff format and scheduling. So that definitely could be something that they look at going forward, which might not be a
yeah.
bad thing.
Well, and look, I'm a, I think for the most part on this podcast, all of us, we're true baseball fans at heart. We obviously have our affiliations and affinities towards certain teams, but so when I say this, I say this, coming from that mindset of, I love when there's 4 playoff games on in a day. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
a really cool, fun day. But
Mm-hmm.
why do we need all 4 teams playing on the same day? Um,
Yeah.
also, and again, I guess it makes sense from the schedule because it's hard to get the series off. But why would you necessarily always have to have the NL play on one day and the AL? Why couldn't you sometimes mix that up a little bit? And,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
so it gets into off days, and obviously, we're not. I haven't sat around and thought this all the way through. So again, there's probably some things that obviously glaringly come up with that kind of thing, but I think it warrants a conversation of, could we be doing this a little bit different, because
Yeah.
I just don't think it played out to be a true advantage the way that it kind of should be. uh,
Yeah.
and again, if I want to be a little salty, I would just say, like, do I understand why the Yankees got the primetime time slot? that first day, sure, but like the Braves are your league's defending World Series champions. Why would you not want that to be front and center
That is
against
all
against
TV market.
against their division rival? You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
just
yeah, but
so
that is all
yeah,
TV market. They look at that New York market and say that's the number one market in the
yeah.
country. They win, and that's
So
kind of the
so again,
yeah,
I get it, but if I am going to be salty, I would say,
yeah,
that could have been looked at, in my opinion. But
yeah,
nonetheless, I
yeah,
digress. And I'm sure there's something about playing at 7 and then making them play at 3 the next. Again, I'm sure there's that goes into the thought, but still,
yeah. There'd be a subset of people that would say, oh, the quick turnaround is a disadvantage. So
right,
I think that that's a important point is that there's never going to be a perfect system. It's
right,
it's there's always going to be some kind of downside.
yeah,
And I think if we were able to hear from the Braves players themselves or the Dodgers or whoever that they would say, hey, no
yeah,
excuses. We should have won it.
for sure. And again, that's why like
Um,
I wanted to preface this whole conversation by saying like
yeah, yeah,
the Phillies outplayed the Braves. Like I will not deny that fact. Um, I think again, just when you look at it, there were things that could have probably done a little bit different. And again, a lot of people would say, well, why should anything be done to give one team the advantage? And it's like that's your reward
yeah, yeah.
for playing a really good regular season. And I
Hmm.
think of any sport, you should reward a baseball team for having a really good regular season because of how long that season is.
Hmm.
So that's why for me it's kind of like glaring that there is an issue that the Braves lost, in my opinion, the advantage of a really good home base, playing in a nice ballpark, being able to play under those light. Like they missed out on a key advantage, in my opinion, and I think we're not rewarded for being the third best team in all of baseball, but the second best team in the NL. So I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can definitely see that. I will say on a positive note, it did make for some really interesting
It
baseball.
did.
Not only that series, but all the series, the division series were really really interesting,
Yeah.
and led to a lot of fun. I mean, we had crazy overtime games and or overtime extra inning
Yeah.
games. We had some pretty stellar performances as far as defensively. So yeah, we had a lot of drama, which made it a lot of fun. Like we were saying earlier, the fact that there were multiple games on, most days,
Yeah.
kind of if you were interested at all in the play in the baseball playoffs, you were living it good because there was a lot of fun
Yeah.
stuff to watch.
100%. 100%. Well, before we get more deep into kind of the recaps of each series, we will do just a quick recap of our predictions that we put in last week. Um, Barrick, I say so far, you were the one who kind of had the crystal ball there, so to speak. You're leading the way. Um, None of us picked any of the games correctly in terms of how many games the series was going to go. Robbie has the only chance of that happening at this point because Robbie actually picked the Yankees to win in 5. So Robbie's the only one that could kind of double up on that. So again, if you've been listening to us for a while, during the regular season, we did kind of a friendly competition that we called Stack Bets, and we were putting bets out for games and things to keep different eyes on throughout the week and make it fun. But for the playoffs, we kind of just switched it to a straight up kind of predictor, essentially giving each person 1 point for correctly picking the correct team. And then you get a bonus point in the series if you pick the correct number of games that team would win. So as a recap, Drew had the Braves in 4, the Dodgers in 4. Obviously, neither one of those happened, so no points on that. He did pick up 1 point. He had the Astros winning in 5. They ended up sweeping them and winning in 3. And then he has the Guard. Actually, so I take that back. He has the Guardians in 5. So
Hmm.
if they win, Drew would actually double up points on that there. So Drew, as it stands right now, just has a single point. Barrick, again, kind of our high flyer right now. Barrick had Astros in 5, so he picked up a point for the Astros winning. Just didn't pick up the extra point for the sweep. He had the Phillies in 5, so he picks up a point for that one for correctly picking them. He also had the Padres in 5, so again another point for picking up the Padres there. He did lose out. He had the Mariners defeating the Astros in 5, so misses that one. And then, like I mentioned, I think he has the Yankees in 4. So you can pick up another point today. When that game does finalize, if the Yankees win, you have won 3 points out of a possible 8 in the divisional round. Robbie, he currently sits with 1 point as well. He picked the Astros in 4, so he was a game off of picking up the double points on that. But then unfortunately had the Braves in 5 and the Dodgers in 4. So unfortunately missed out on that. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, he has the Yankees in 5. So if the Yankees pick up that win today, he would actually be at 3 points, 1 point behind you, because you would pick up another point for the Yankees. So you would end up with 4 there. Buddy, did I have a rough prediction? So I also had the Braves in 4. I had the Dodgers in 3. I hopped on that Dodgers train pretty heavy. It looked real good in the first game.
I was gonna say nobody should feel bad about picking the Dodgers because I mean, if you go by statistically, pretty dang good team. So
yep. I also then picked the Mariners to top the Astros in 5. In a weird way, they ended up playing 4 games, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. So I missed out on that pick completely. So the only hope that I have at this point, I did pick the Yankees in 4.
Let's go Yanks.
I have a solace, and hopefully if the Yankees can pick up 1 game today, I will get 1 measly point in the DS division. So yeah, fun times on that. Because we didn't do this officially, but I also did not have a very good wild card round as well.
It goes to show you, man. This is why they play the game. It's so much fun. You never know what's going to happen.
Dog eat dog for sure. So that's our recap. If you want to see those more, feel free, check out last week's episode. We kind of talk about each series a little bit, go into them. And then we did put the predictions in the description show notes at the bottom for everybody to see. So if you want some more, feel free to hop back and check out episode 26 for our playoff recap there. So with that, we've already talked about the Braves and the Phillies series. I think we can hop into the next one, the next kind of big upset, and that being that the Padres oust the Dodgers in 4 games. As I mentioned, Dodgers looked pretty good in game 1. Offense looked to be still there. Pitching, Urias put together a really good outing. Dodgers take the first game, and then the Padres just flipped this thing on its head, winning 3 straight games, games 2, 3, and 4. And I think that's slightly more impressive when you look at that series versus the Braves-Phillies series, where the Phillies won the first game and lost the second game, and then went on to win 2 more. The Padres won 3 games in a row against the Dodgers. That's impressive. And to be honest, game 3, even though it was kind of back and forth, really felt like they were in control of that game the whole time. And it was good. Like you said, the entertainment value was through the roof.
I wonder, when I was kind of following that series, I was wondering how much, because like you said, the Padres lost game 1, and it would have been really easy for them to just kind of fall apart and just say, we're running into a buzzsaw that is the Dodgers, but they didn't, obviously. And I feel like a lot of that had to have been Juan Soto. I feel like he, really, he may not be a super vocal guy, but he's won a championship with the Nationals, and I feel like he probably was looked at as kind of like the voice of experience in that clubhouse. And I feel like I feel like he probably made a big difference for them in order to, after game one, saying, "Hey, we can still do this. We can, we can rally." And I really wonder how much of a big influence he was, because I feel like the fact that they were able to mentally, stay in the series and not let game one get to them was, I think,
Yeah.
was really impressive.
Well, and to your point, I think a lot of people may forget sometimes, like even though he is super young, I mean, I think he's 22 years old. I think
Yeah.
he went on that run with the Nationals in 2019.
Yep.
He was a part of that team. He was a part of that wild card team that went through the trials and tribulations of a playoff, you know, full run,
Hmm.
and ultimately won himself a World Series. And I agree with you. I think he brings a level of swag to the clubhouse that kind of just breeds confidence into some guys. I think Manny Machado, being kind of the old hat in the room, he brings a lot. Um,
Hmm.
Bob Melvin, again, we haven't really given him much credit as the manager for the Padres. I think him and his experience being able to speak
Yeah.
into that room. This is one of those times I wish Ryan was able to be with us, because Ryan had the
Hmm.
privilege to play as a player under Bob Melvin, and I've heard nothing but great things from
Yep.
Ryan when Bob's name comes up. So, I think it's one of those things where they just have a really good mix. And when you look at that pitching staff, man, Yu Darvish is pitching, back at his caliber
Yeah. What
Cub
a
days.
resilient.
Uh, Blake Snell, I mean, he's a household name that's never really gone anywhere. And this resurgence of Musgroves, I mean, that dude looks like a Cy Young right now.
Yeah.
Big old shiny Dumbo ears and all. But I mean, he's pitching his tail off. And I was talking with some friends here going into Game 4, and they had Musgroves on the mound. I was like, this is heavy favorites for the Padres,
Which is crazy.
which is wild.
Yeah.
And he went out there and proved it. And
Hmm.
it just goes to show. And I think this again is one of the things that got lost a little bit in the Braves run last year. When you have a group of guys that gel and bond. And I think when you look at the National League, we just finished talking about the Phillies and the Braves series, and you talk about these Padres. That really does seem to be what the Phillies and the Padres have, is they have this group of guys that are totally bought in together. They're all pulling in one direction. And they've got superstars. Both of these teams have superstars.
Hmm.
And so that's going to be a wild playoff series. Because
Yeah.
even as you mentioned before, you've got two fan bases that are hungry for a World
Hmm.
Series, and one of their teams gets to go. So
Yep.
it's going
And
to
I
be
think it's a
interesting.
lot of fun. Like when you're looking at that series, I think it's going to be a lot of fun because both, like you said, both of them have a lot of talent. So it's gonna be a nice. I think it's gonna be a fun slugfest. I hope
Yeah,
it's gonna be a close back and forth series, and I think it will be. So, two questions for you about the Padres. One,
yeah,
do you think? I mean, again, nobody really, most people didn't really think that they were going to win this series against the Dodgers. Again, for good reason. But do you think that the Padres are um, a significantly more talented team than we realized or gave them credit for? Or do you think it's more of that West Coast, East Coast bias thing where it's like, yeah, they were, always this good. We just, didn't quite uh, pay attention as much as we should because, they were always on at like 2 in the morning.
yeah.
Um, I mean, if you had to go one or the other, which one do you think it is? Because for me, like I think for me, like we knew they were talented, but I didn't I even though I picked them against the Dodgers, I didn't think that they, really would have this kind of run in them.
Yeah. Uh, I think when you look at them on paper, like you mentioned, they are exceptionally talented. Uh,
Yeah.
it. I mean, we opened with this a little bit, but it just cannot go it shouldn't go understated how big of an acquisition Juan Soto was to this team
And I think a lot of
at
people
the
forgot he
deadline.
was even on the team.
Yeah, and so I think what a little bit of it was he did not adjust very well to being over there. When
Mm,
he got traded, he struggled a lot, mightily,
mm.
and him being the presence that he is in the lineup when he is on makes that lineup so much better.
Yeah.
And to
Well,
your point,
especially with Tatis out.
yeah. And so to your point, and what we were talking about a little earlier, in that game 4, he was up to bat, and I believe there was a runner on second, and I think that was either the go. I think that was the go ahead run at the time. Uh, he was not going to get out. Like
Yeah,
the
are you
way
talking about like the one where he got on first and was just like screaming his head
yeah,
off? Yeah,
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 the line drive he pulled to right field.
yeah.
The way that he was taking pitches in that at bat, it honestly reminded me of like an old school video game when like your
Mm.
player reaches this like ultimate energy level and you turn on the cheat of like he's
Yeah,
guaranteed a
yeah,
hit. Like that's what that at bat felt like. The way he
yeah.
was taking pitches, the way that he was like he just was so locked in, and he was going to get a hit. And I think that's what's so dangerous with teams at this time of the year. When you have guys like that can do that, it changes the game so much.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they've got a couple guys that can do that. And they're a scrappy team. So very different than what the Braves just did in that series. They string together hits. They got guys that will hit home runs and do, big damage, but they're death by 1,000 cuts, man. I mean,
Mm,
they will single and double you to death. And they proved that a couple times in this Dodger series where
yeah.
you were expecting that big hammer to drop with like a 3-run home run, and it just never happened. It was
In that
single,
sense, they
double,
kind of remind you of the Guardians.
100%, hundred
Yeah,
percent. So I think to your point, which one would I say better? For us on the East Coast, it's always hard because there is that bias. Because, like you said, we
yeah.
just never see them play. But I think the team did not gel until they beat the Mets. I think when they beat
Okay.
the Mets, I think that solidified in their mind we can make a run at this thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so, it's. I think there's something to that for sure. So
Yeah. So my other question is Jake Cronenworth always been this good or what? Because like I barely knew about him and he's just like absolutely destroying people
yeah,
during that Dodgers series. Like my gosh.
yeah. He's always been a scrappy player, I would say, but I think this is uh, through and through a case of the October cloak of
Yep.
like guys perform differently on the big stage, man. Like some dudes are just born with it, and when that game gets into high stakes, there's just something in them that just is different. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like,
Yep.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I would even say Kenny, is very similar to that. Like Kenny is really difficult. Like he is so hyper competitive that he finds it difficult if we're just going to go play like putt putt and
Yeah.
there's like nothing on the line, he'll suck and you'll beat the crap out of him. But you throw $20 down on that first tee, he might go 18 under, hole in one the whole course. Like
Yep. Yep.
it's guys just have a switch that when there's something on the line, their name shines bright, and
Yeah.
so you go from there. So I mean, to your point, Cronenworth this year, I mean, he hit 239 with 17 home runs and 88 RBIs. I mean, it's nothing that's going to blow your socks off,
Nope.
but I mean, if you take a look so far in that division series against the Dodgers, he hit 438 with 1 home run and 5 RBIs. He had 7 hits. I mean, like you said, he's just playing out of his
Yeah.
mind. So uh, again, I think it's just big lights, big talent, man. Like it's
Yeah,
just
it's
one of
gonna be
those
fun
things.
to see because not that I think the Padres didn't exactly need another like big star to show up, but he's kind of turning into one. So
Yeah.
it's
I
gonna
mean,
be kind of moving on or putting the two together. How do you feel about not that we have to make a prediction necessarily now, but is this Padres Phils? I mean, it seems like it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I I don't know if I'm the person to ask based on my predictions in the past, and we'll save the predictions for later. But uh,
I guess I mean more
yeah,
just like the matchup of the two teams. Like it seems like it's going to be again just a lot of star power. It feels like it could be a high scoring series and just
yeah,
a really entertaining.
100%. I think key factors in the series are going to be, can the Phillies bullpen do what they did in the Braves series? Because that was one of the biggest question marks on the Phillies coming into the season. Their bullpen wasn't very deep.
Mm-hmm.
So again, they had guys step up. Sir Anthony Dominguez in that game 4, like, he's throwing 100-mile-an-hour two seams and sinkers that have like 5 inches of drop on them. Like, what in the world? Like,
Did anybody check his ear?
dude turned into like Mariano Rivera Jr. on the mound
Yeah.
all of a sudden. That hasn't been there all season. Uh, Jose Alvarado's a tough at bat no matter what time of the year is, but you get that man pumped with some adrenaline. I mean, he was unhittable.
Yeah.
So the Phillies bullpen is a big key in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then so I'll do that. So I'll do 2 for each. Um, so Phillies bullpen, and then their stars have to hit.
Yeah.
Schwarber
And they didn't really against the Braves.
Schwarber was kind of not there, but Harper was hitting well. Hoskins was hitting well. Real Muto was hitting well.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. Yeah.
So Schwarber, Castellanos, Harper, those guys have to set the tone at the top of that lineup, because it takes so much pressure off the younger guys at the bottom, like Alec Boehm, Bryson Stott.
Yeah.
If those guys can freely swing, Brandon Marsh, I mean, him hitting that 3-run home run in game 4, again, just unbelievable. But it's because the rest of the lineup was taking the pressure off of him having to do something, because it was a hit parade, and so he knew that he could free swing basically up there. So those guys at the top of the order have to set the tone to allow those guys at the bottom, in my opinion. So those are the 2 Philly keys, in my opinion. For the
Yeah.
Padres, I think it comes down to starting pitching. Those guys have to go deep. They have to give them 6-7 innings of
Mm-hmm.
2-run baseball, to because again, their bullpen is good, but I would say not deep. So they're not in a situation like the Braves last year, where basically if your starters could give you 5 innings of 1 to 2 run baseball, good luck with that bullpen.
Yeah.
I don't think the Padres have that per se, until you get to the 8th and 9th, because those guys look good.
Mm-hmm.
And Hader is on a different level right now. That dude struck out 1, 2, and 3 of the Dodgers lineup. Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, Freddie Freeman made them look silly. Uh,
Yeah.
so that dude's on a different planet. So if they can get the ball to those 2 guys with a lead, that's going to be key. So starting pitching is big in my opinion. And then again, I'm going to kind of copycat a little bit in the sense of, I think Juan Soto and Manny Machado have to continue the pace that they're on,
Yeah.
because if those guys are setting the tone offensively, it's going to allow the other guys they have in their lineup, like the Cronenworth and the Jerks and Profar, and forgive me, I'm going to butcher his name, Kim, their shortstop,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Haesung Kim. So again, those guys have to be star players, in order, I think, to free up that lineup a little bit. So
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, that's some big J journalism right there for you, my friend.
I'm
So
telling you, man.
yeah, we can clip that and put that somewhere. So but yeah, so all that to be said, I think it is going to be a fun series. I think it's going to
Yeah.
be a long series. I think these teams are very evenly matched when you look at it side by
It's
side.
just crazy that there's going to be either the Phillies or the Padres in the World Series. Like, who, man?
I
Again, this is
saw
why we play the games.
I saw a pretty hysterical article today, about the Phillies and the trends of them winning World Series. Apparently, the Philadelphia Athletics won the World Series in 1929.
Sorry.
Sometime
I
shortly
just
after
missed
that,
that series.
sometime shortly after that, the Great Depression hit. The Phillies won a World Series sometime in the 80s. I don't remember what the article said. Energy crisis, gas prices go up. It's, that's back when they had the letters of when you could get out, all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
The next Philadelphia Phillies World Series, 2008, financial crisis, housing bubble burst, stock market tanks, whole 9 yards. So apparently the Phillies have this weird trend that every time they win a World Series, our economy goes into complete shambles.
So basically, what you're saying is the Phillies are like a shell team for the Russians.
Something, yeah. What I'm saying is, if the Phillies make the World Series, it might be a good time to start shorting some stocks. Is all I'm saying.
There you go.
So
I like it. We are now your home for financial advice
no,
too.
yeah. Do not take financial advice from this podcast. We are not responsible for any money that you may have lost from any advice, whatever that legal term is. But no, I thought that was pretty funny. That apparently
that
there
is
is
funny.
that correlation. So
Yeah.
I think for all of us, we need to be Padres fans in this series. Is what I'm hearing. So nonetheless,
the other thing about the Padres, they have like low key awesome uniforms. Like I usually don't like the pinstripes, but their
yeah.
pinstripes are nice.
I have a love hate relationship with that brown.
Really? Okay.
I like the helmet.
Okay.
Brown pinstripes are weird to me.
Okay.
I think even on a suit, like I don't think
Okay.
I would wear a suit that had brown pinstripes.
See, it's funny. I agree with that, but for some reason, I don't know. There's something about the jerseys I like.
Yeah.
And like I said, I usually don't like pinstripes at all.
I love their City Connect jerseys. I think
those are sweet too.
I think so far they win the City Connect jerseys.
Those are cool.
I like their away jerseys. Again, that brown is just sometimes hard to swallow. It's a tough one.
I get it.
Now, you give me the option of the red Phillies pinstripes or the brown Padres pinstripes. I'm gonna go with the Padres for sure.
There you go. There you go.
Because I cannot.
I wish they would wear
the Phillies
City
red
Connect ones. Either this series or whatnot. I know they won't, but I wish they would.
I think if both teams had them, they probably could. But I don't think Philadelphia has released theirs yet. So
okay,
I could be wrong. I don't know. But
like I know the NFL has always been really strict about that. Like once it comes playoffs, like go with the vanilla stuff. But I don't know about baseball as much.
Except for that 2008 Phillies World Series against the Rays, where they introduced the earmuff baseball cap. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, that's true. That one didn't really catch on.
No, let's not bring that back. Good Lord. Hey, good news is they could put PitchCom in that flap though, and it would be right there on their ear. So
that's true. That's true. Maybe it will come back. Who knows?
Oh man. I remember that was like I remember watching it was like game 1 of the World Series, and it was like, what the heck are they wearing?
Yeah. It's like, what's wrong with my TV? It's broke.
Yeah. Why are my colors bleeding into the pretty crazy. All right, real quick, just because there's a little bit to talk about with this series, but not a lot. The Astros, they are the Astros. I think they kind of make the case right now for maybe the layoff after the first round bye isn't such a bad thing, because they seem to come out. They were a little slow in game 1. The Mariners were up in game 1, 7-3. Alex Bregman comes up, hits a 2-run home run in the bottom of the 8th inning. And then they go into the bottom of the 9th, still up 7-5. And Yordan Alvarez hit a baseball, probably the hardest I've ever seen a baseball hit.
I was gonna say there's a typo here because they changed their name to the Houston Yordans. They're no longer the Houston Astros, but he golly smashing stuff.
Could you imagine? So first of all, when you hit a baseball like that, you do not feel it off the bat. So he did not feel anything. But could you imagine the feeling of destroying a baseball 450 feet that wins a game?
Oh my gosh.
But not only that, but wins a playoff game. Like, how he didn't pass out on the way to first base is a miracle in and of itself, in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
So wild
The amount
game
of
one,
serotonin going through his brain was probably crazy.
100%, 100%.
Oh.
Wild game one, and then Houston ends up taking game two of the series as well. I don't remember offhand if anything crazy happened in that one. Oh
That
no,
was
they
that
did.
was
They
the
came back in that one too because Jordan hit
yeah.
another home run in that one as well. Yeah, sorry, I do remember that now.
No, but I mean it's funny because that was a great game, but it was still the kind of ugly stepchild of the three.
Right, yeah. So the Mariners were actually up 2-1, and then Jordan hits a 2-run home run in the sixth of that game to go up
You're gone.
3-2,
Yeah.
and then they tack on another one in the eighth to win that game 4-2. And then, of course, the most memorable game of the entire series was Game 3. It's the first playoff game in Seattle since, I think, 2001, if I remember correctly. Their fans were hype. The stories that I was reading were that the fans never sat down.
Oh my gosh.
Which that'll be even more crazy when we finish telling you the rest of this story. But for baseball podcast folks, you'll know the name Jared Carabas. He is now over at DraftKings, host of a podcast. I think it's called Baseball's Not Dead or Baseball is Dead or something like that. He was at the game. He sent out a tweet at one point where somebody tried to sit down in like the eighth inning, and somebody yelled at them and said, "We've been waiting 21 years for this baseball game. You can stand up for a couple more hours." So
Good for
again,
them.
you got to love the energy and
That's
the love.
awesome.
So pretty wild. This game goes 17 innings without a
Oh,
run.
18. Oh
Well,
yeah, sorry.
So 17 innings without a run before the Astros finally put up a run in the 18th inning, and it was oh shoot, I should have had this pulled up. Who was the guy that hit it? Pena,
Pena, yeah,
their
Pena.
shortstop, Jeremy Pena.
Yep.
Holy crap! I mean, how he got his hands to that baseball are pretty ridiculous as well. This kid made his debut this year. So again, big spot, comes through, gets the hit, and unfortunately the Mariners are not able to respond in the bottom of the 18th and lose game 3 1-0 after 18 innings. They played games 3 and 4 together. So I was kind of starting to petition that if the Mariners won that game, the series was tied and was going to go back to Houston. So
yeah. I mean, it was getting so late that I was halfway expecting like just a pop up and then the outfielder just kind of toss the ball over the wall, just like no, it's gone. Yeah, we're good. I mean, it was crazy, but and then what a hard way to lose if you're a Mariners fan. Like that's go all the way into the 18 innings and have the series on the line like that. That's really tough.
Yeah.
But like you said, the fans they showed out. They did a great job representing the team in their first home playoff series in a long time. And yeah, I mean, I would argue that this probably the most like competitive sweep that there's been in a long time. Like it kind of felt that way. Like the Mariners were in all three games. They were super competitive and just couldn't eke out a win. But I mean, considering it was technically a sweep, it felt so competitive, which I think is a testament to the Mariners for sure.
100%. I mean, to your point, a couple plays here and there, the Mariners could have ended up sweeping this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think, unfortunately, that comes down to just playoff experience. I think the Mariners have some good experience on their team, but they were somewhat they were somewhat in uncharted territory, and the Astros, now that they have clinched that series, set an MLB record for 6 straight championship series appearances, which if you want to put an asterisk over that 2017 season or not, that's fine, but it's still impressive.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think you got to give kudos where kudos are. But you got to feel for the Mariners. I mean, they
yeah.
battled. They're a young team. They've got a really good core, I think, that is there. But again, a couple plays here and there, and we're talking about another upset on the weekend, which is crazy. So
Yeah, and I think if you're a Mariners fan, that stings. But at the same time, you got to be super excited about the future, just because they've got, like you said, they've got a lot of young guys. They've got their taste of the postseason now. I think Julio Rodriguez, he signs that massive contract, and how many times in a pick your sport, how many times do you see the big star sign the big contract and then just kind of fall off the face of the earth? He did the opposite. He really came to play and kind of backed up the money that he's getting, at least so far. So I think if you're a Mariners fan, you got to be really excited about what next year could look like. Still tough to lose it, but again, yeah, definitely a fun series for sure.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to see kind of what happens with the Mariners because again, baseball is one of those fickle sports. Like, yes, they can be very excited, but there's not a guarantee. I mean, again, what the Astros are
Yeah,
doing is unprecedented
yeah,
because you can't necessarily sit there and say that they're going to be back, but because again, unfortunately, the Mariners are in the Astros division, so they're going to have to take them down one way or the other.
hmm
They're the big brother in the room, so we'll see.
yeah. I don't think
I'm
the
rooting for
Mariners
them.
would want it any
You know,
other way, though.
yeah, I like the Mariners. If I had to have like a West Coast team to go along with the Braves, I'd probably pick the Mariners.
Yeah,
I've liked them. I kind of go back to the Mariners to the Ken Griffey days. I mean, those old school uniforms are still some of
oh
the
yeah,
best uniforms in the history. I mean, if
hmm
if we were to do a Mount Rushmore of baseball uniforms, they would be on mine. I think so.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So anyway, uh, so again, big sting to the Mariners, but again, I think they're slightly ahead of their time. They won a series, and they won a tough series going into Toronto and beating Toronto in Toronto. That's a big
yeah,
deal. That's a big deal. Um,
yeah.
so kudos to them for that. I believe I'm seeing on Twitter. Let me just try to double check this real quick, but I believe they have officially postponed uh, the Yankees series to good Lord, what is happening? Don't you love when an ad just starts playing automatically? You don't even click something and
Yeah.
then you try to pause it, and the next thing you know, it's still not pausing. So, anyway, yes, they have officially postponed the Yankees and Guardians game 5 tonight, and they will play tomorrow at
4
4:07.
o'clock.
That
Yep.
is that is even more mind-boggling. They're going to play that game at 4:07. This just completely
Yeah.
goes to what we talked about. Like,
Yep.
why is that
Yep.
game not being played at 1 o'clock for them to be able to get on the road? Because either one of those teams that wins has to fly to Houston.
Yep.
So that is wild. That is wild.
Yeah.
So
It's going to be interesting because you would imagine that's going to be a disadvantage, and we'll see. Maybe it is, maybe it
100%.
isn't, but yeah, you got to think it's
No,
going to be.
their pitching is completely upside down. I think this favors the Guardians, in my opinion, because I believe Shane Bieber was going to be going on 4 days rest today and was not going to pitch. I think
Right.
this now allows him to come back tomorrow and pitch.
That's true.
So,
That would be big because yeah, he was not slotted for today originally.
so, but I think again it's a real disadvantage because neither one of these teams gets that day's rest for their bullpen. So really, best case scenario for either one of these teams is that their starter can go out and pitch a complete game. I doubt that's going
Yeah.
to happen, but
Hard to
yeah.
see it,
So
but yeah.
So officially, we can now say here on the podcast, as of the time of this recording, the Yankees and Guardians Game 5 officially postponed until Tuesday, October 18th. And again, the winner of that game is set to travel to Houston and start the ALCS on Wednesday. So tough beat for them.
Yeah.
We've kind of already gone into it. Oh, go ahead. Did you have something else you want to say?
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, it's been a fun series. I think you got to be impressed by what the Guardians have done so far. I really wish
Yeah.
that we could revisit the name Guardians. I just hate saying it. It's the worst. But that aside, yeah, I think the Yankees kind of have to feel a little bit like the Braves in that I feel like the Yankees have not shown their full potential at all to this point. I feel like Harrison Bader's been about the only one that's really played well for them,
Yeah.
and I feel like they've got to be especially if they lose tomorrow, they got to look back just the same the way the Braves did, just be like, man, what could have been? We definitely did not play to full potential. So it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. Just because, yeah, if they can find a way to squeak it out, are they gonna actually turn it on when they play the Astros? Because I mean, if they don't, they'll get pummeled.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know who gives the Astros a more competitive series. I think on
I think
paper you look at the Yankees, but the way that the Guardians can put the ball in play,
that's the thing.
they could
I
put a lot
think
of pressure on them.
if both teams play to their potential, I think the Yankees. I almost feel like it has to be them, but as of right now, the way they're playing right now, I think you got to say Cleveland is playing better right now, and if they continue that, you got to think they would give the better shot. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be. I don't want
And
to I don't want to downplay the series, but I think it almost feels like it's a little bit of an appetizer to the NLCS.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I Even though it's changed quite a bit in terms of the landscape of the teams, I kind of
yeah,
said going into the playoffs that the winner of the World Series was going to be whoever survived the National League. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
I still kind of feel that way, even though the Astros are making it difficult to feel that way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll
The
see.
Astros were kind of in the same boat as the Dodgers when we're talking about like, sneaky good slash kind of forgetting how good they were. So,
Yeah.
I really, I kind of hope the Yankees win tomorrow just because I think it would be really fun to see a clicking on all cylinders Yankees Astros series. I think that would be a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
I agree.
Now, obviously, we don't know if we'll get that because so far the Yankees haven't really shown their ability to do that so far. But I think that would be a lot of fun. So that's kind of where my rooting interests are lying tomorrow.
I hear you. All right. Any other thoughts on the crazy divisional series?
It's been a lot of fun. I think it's lived up to the hype that we were expecting. Maybe even surpassed it. So let's just hope that the championship series can keep that going.
Yeah, I agree. Man. Again, uh, you know, all sadness aside, and the Braves losing, it was a really fun week of baseball. The series were mostly I would say the Braves Philly series was probably the least competitive series, honestly, because games 3 and 4 were not close.
Yeah,
Game one wasn't really close till the ninth inning. So I would say sadly that was probably the least competitive series
yeah. I
of the
think you're
bunch,
probably right.
uh, which just keeps shoving that dagger just a little bit deeper. But
Yeah,
we
yeah.
didn't really talk about this, but something potentially to talk about, and maybe again another playoff relook. The MLB chose not to have reseeding of the teams after the
That's
first
true. Yeah,
round. And had they reseeded these teams, uh, the Dodgers actually would have been playing the Phillies and the Braves would have been playing the Padres. I'm not saying the outcomes change,
yeah, yeah,
but it would have changed how familiar both teams were with each other. And I think that does breed a little bit more of a competitive game than what happened in both series. Um, the Yankees Guardian series was the only divisional series that did not have two division opponents going against each other. And except for the Astros series, the lower seed was able to beat that higher seed. And I think that is a potential. Yes, they played really well, have momentum, but I think it's also a direct correlation to they also know those teams very well. So
Yeah,
that's something
I don't,
to look at for sure.
yeah, and I don't say this to um, go one way or the other, but I remember we talked about this before the playoffs started, and one of the questions that we talked about was, you know, as a Braves fan, who would you rather have? Would you rather face the Padres or the Phils? And if I'm remembering correctly, pretty much everybody said the Padres. Not because not because nobody thinks the Padres are good, but like you said, that familiarity that the two teams have is kind of scary, and obviously the Phillies were already starting this little hot streak that they have going on. But I think that it is interesting that that kind of played out the way we kind of thought
Yeah.
it would. Now, I will say the reseeding is interesting because none of the other major sports reseed for the playoffs. So I think it's interesting that baseball was even considering it because in a way it would be unprecedented. That doesn't mean it wouldn't be interesting, cool, or even the right thing to do, but it would be different. So I know that was kind of an interesting topic, at least in my book, because yeah, it changes things a lot if they had done that. And I think that'd be I think they would have to if I was in baseball's front office, I would say that that would be a conversation that would you would want to make sure you have a lot of good reasons behind it for pulling the trigger because I think there would be a lot of people on both sides of the aisle that would be pretty fired up about it.
Yeah. Um, for some reason, and I'm not going to be able to do this live on this episode, and I very well could be wrong. Um, for some reason, I feel like that MLB used to do that. Um, and again, I'm not going to sit here and try to look it up, but I feel like for some reason they used
Yeah.
to do that. I could be wrong. I also felt like there used to be some kind of rule that you didn't face a divisional opponent until the championship series. Um, that also could be wrong as well. But anyway,
Yeah, I don't know about those two. I don't like the second thing. Like I personally think that if I think you just kind of have to let the cards fall where they lie. Like, I mean,
yeah,
if the standings, support two division teams playing early on, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's just kind of the way it should go. Like I said, the reseeding I think is definitely a more complicated topic. But I don't know if they used to do that. I'm not sure about that either.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, I feel like while it may not happen in most pro sports, I mean, growing up, I feel like it happened a lot in like our travel ball tournaments and stuff like that. Like the higher seed usually always got to play the lower seed. That was the advantage of being the higher seed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I think it does reward, especially in baseball, being as long of a season as it is, it does reward a team that kept their foot down. Because the Dodgers could have mailed their season in basically the middle of October or the middle of August almost. Like,
Yeah.
so, I think there's something to be said, so again, I don't know. It's just, again, food for thought for conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, so we do have the NLCS is set, Padres and Phillies. Padres, funnily enough, we didn't talk about this. They're the 5 seed. The Phillies are the 6 seed. So the Padres actually have home field advantage in this series. So games 1 and 2 will be played in San Diego. Games 3, 4, and 5 will be played in Philadelphia. And then, if necessary, games 6 and 7 would return back to San Diego. I think, based on our conversation, I have feelings that will happen. So we shall see. And then, of course, the ALCS, the Astros are the 1 seed in the American League, so they will have home field advantage. And to be honest, no matter which of these 3 teams that we still have on the screen, I think all 3 of them have better records than the Padres and the Phillies. So I think the American League team will have home field advantage in the World Series.
Mm.
I do believe. So that is a byproduct of both of those wild card teams being down there. I would have to double
Yeah.
check that. The only one I would be not sure about is the Guardians.
Sure.
But anyway, so the Astros will host either the Yankees or the Guardians, depending on how Game 5 shakes out tomorrow. So games 1 and 2 will be in Houston. 3, 4, and 5 would be either in New York or Cleveland. And then the series, again, if necessary, would round out in Houston for 6 and 7. So exciting next week of baseball for your championship series. Super stoked to see kind of what happens. As Barrick said, really hoping for some more competitive baseball and hoping to kind of see these teams pull through. So I think without further ado, Barrick, we got to give the people what they want.
Let's do it.
Prediction time. So Drew was the only one that texted in some predictions before the show. So I will try to get Robbie and or Kenny or any of the other guys in with their predictions for the championship series. So we'll start with Drew since he is not here to share any thoughts or opinions. Drew, in the National League. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to go straight through or do you want to do like each league?
Let's do each league.
All right. So Drew in the National League Championship Series has the Philadelphia Phillies topping the Padres in 6 games. So I will defer to you as a choice since you have more than likely won the first divisional series of this. If you would like to go next, or if you would like me to go next,
I can go next. I'm torn on this because I think I'm gonna be pulling for the Padres. I find them entertaining to watch. I think I like the guys they have on there. Obviously, Manny being a former Oriole, Juan Soto is easy to pull for. But my head is kind of telling me the Phillies are just so freaking hot right now that they almost kind of have that tinge of destiny kind of thing to them, which I know is hard to hear, but it just kind of feels that way. So I'm gonna go Phillies in 6.
All right. Following Drew's lead there, certainly not a problem. So for me, again, I honestly do think it's a crapshoot. I think if you, I would be interested to see like the MLB The Show simulations on this. I truly believe it would be a toss-up. I think it would be one of those where if they simulated this thing 1,000 times, one of the teams would win 501 times and the other team would win 499 times. I think they're evenly matched. For me, I just have to go with what wins games in this time of the year, and that is pitching, a solid closer, someone who has proven themselves in that role, and then some of that experience of that game. And so for me, I have to give the edge to the Padres. But again, as I mentioned earlier, I do think this series is probably going to go the distance. So I'm taking the Padres in 7.
Okay. I like it.
I honestly, this feels like a series to me too, much like most of the NBA series during their playoffs. This feels like the home team is going to win every game of the series. So I would kind of predict this going Padres win in San Diego, the Phillies would win 3 in Philadelphia, and then the Padres come home and close it out in front of their fans. That's kind of how I see this. That's what this feels like to me. So we'll see. So Padres in 7 for me in the NLCS.
Yeah.
For the American League, Drew, this is kind of tough, I will say, for myself, because I think there is a little slight dependency on who wins this Game 5 against the Yankees and the Guardians.
Of course. You're basically making 2 picks here.
As I preface this, I will say, based on Drew's prediction, I don't think he really cares who wins the Yankees Guardians. Drew has the Astros winning in 5. So I don't think Drew really gives 2 flips who wins the Yankees Guardians series on that one. So,
yep.
You want to go next on this one, or you want me to? All right,
you take it.
So I do feel a little bit differently. I feel like I do feel like the Guardians will give them a slightly better series. Both the Yankees and the Guardians are going to be handicapped by their pitching with how the timing of this series has gone, because this is now the second rainout the series has had. So that's just real tough. No team, I feel like, has really been able to seize any type of momentum like we've seen with the Padres and with the Phillies. So man, I don't really know how to pick this. I think the Astros ultimately will win. So really it's coming down to me to how many games. Honestly, I think it might be 6 either way. So I think I'm going to take the Astros in 6.
So the last series, Padres Phils, I said I was going with my head. I'm going to reverse that and go with my heart on this one. I cannot pick the Astros, so I'm going with the Yankees. I think they're going to win tomorrow. Squeak it out against the Guardians. I think they're going to literally just barely get past them. And then I'm hoping that they're going to take that as a wake-up call and really come and bring the juice against the Astros. I think I'm going to take Yankees in 7, fully admitting that my head says that is a stupid thing.
All right. Well, there we have it. We will update the notes below with our predictions. So if you're watching this after this live recording, be sure to check down in the box below. We'll put our predictions down there, and I'll also see if I can get some of the other guys' predictions of what they think.
Yeah,
but
you got a card, and then they're still in mourning,
yeah,
from the Brave series. So,
it's been a tough.
It's a process.
Yeah. So as it stands right now with the picks that we have, Drew has the Philadelphia Phillies playing the Houston Astros. Barrick has the Philadelphia Phillies facing the New York Yankees. And I have the San Diego Padres facing the Houston Astros. So we all have right now 3 different World Series. So
that's what makes it fun, man.
I do love that. That's super exciting. We all have these going pretty deep series, with the exception of Drew, who apparently has full confidence in the Astros.
Drew said, "I got stuff to do, man. We're just keep this going."
Yeah. Head down, keep it moving, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, it's been fun, Barrick. I think we've chatted about some really cool things today. Hopefully provided some different perspectives on how things are viewed, and hopefully gave some good insights into what's coming. So I'm looking forward to another kind of week of baseball, so to speak, here.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I think, this is, even people that maybe are just casual baseball fans, this is a lot of fun because, that energy when you get a full stadium and things are rocking, it's so much fun to watch. So, this week's going to be a lot of fun because, there's going to be, like we were talking about earlier, there's some fan bases that are going to be really hungry for this. And it's going to be, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So yeah, we're excited to see what happens. Let's just hope that the best version of all the teams, shows up, because I think that if they do, then we're gonna have some really entertaining series.
Yep. Wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, just looking forward to it. I've got some more work travel this week. I'm thankful to be back in the humble home studio with solid Wi-Fi.
There we go.
So just kind of pumped. As Barrick said, it has been tough. It's been fascinating because for so long the Braves in the playoffs, you didn't expect them to win, and after last year and how they competed and got through it, your heart and your mind shifted a little bit, and it became like we could win. We should be in this championship series. We should be in the World Series. And so I think what's making this a little tough to swallow is the abruptness. I think had the Braves moved on and faced either the Dodgers or the Padres in the NLCS and they lost, it would still be tough to swallow, but I don't think it would have felt as abrupt as this. So I think that's
I think, like we said earlier, I think everybody feels like there was just more in the tank that should have been there.
So So that'll eventually subside. We'll turn our eyes to 2023. We intentionally did not get into storylines of 2023 and what's to come, because we have an off season that we have to honestly be able to get through and have some topics to talk about as well. But
Plenty
at
of
the
time
same
for
time,
that. Plenty of
at the
time.
same time, yeah, let's get through the 2022 season first and kind of take it from there. So,
And on a halfway serious note, I think these series kind of deserve their platform. So we'll
100%.
give them the due and enjoy it. And yeah, we can get into off season stuff when we get there.
Absolutely. So, well, Barrick, it's been super fun, man. I appreciate you hopping on, talking some baseball with me. For those of you listening, as always, if there's anything you would like to contribute, whether it's segment ideas or anything else you would like, questions, comments, anything like that, feel free. Shoot us an email at first23rdpod@gmail.com. That's the word first, the number 2, the word third, and pod@gmail.com. Also, feel free in the description below, go give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram. Even though the Braves are out of it, we're still going to be, hunting playoffs and hopefully interacting with the baseball community out there and the first to third community. We love engaging with you guys and doing what we can. If you are watching and listening to us here on YouTube, we'd appreciate you giving the video a thumbs up. Also, go ahead and hit that subscribe button to be sure to catch our future content and future talks. And again, we appreciate your time. Barrick, it's been fun, my friend. We will do this again next week, and look forward to seeing you then. Peace.
Yeah, man. See you then.